Hi guys, so let's get into study techniques. If you missed yesterday's one on memory tactics, make sure you go and watch it. You need to watch these sequentially, okay? There's a method in this madness. So with mind maps, what you want to do is you want to draw up your topics and you put your central topic in the middle, and then you put your other ones around it. I'll just show you one that I whipped up in Paint. So this one's aerodynamics, and it has forces, controls, maneuvers, lift and drag. Now lift and drag could probably go in forces, but there's so much in them I wanted to put them out by themselves. Do whatever works for you. And then what you do is you put little bubbles off those. Now when I do these, what I also do is I put this little acronym down the bottom. So that represents that mind map. Each letter just represents each word. And I've done the same over here for forces. Okay, there's the forces one. And I've done the same there. Now, the reason you do that is so that after you've done all your mind maps, because we start with lots of information and we want to shrink it down, shrink it down, shrink it down. So after we've done our mind maps, what we want to do is we want to have something like that, where F is for forces, L is for lift, D is for drag. Under drag you got induced and your parasitic, and then you got M for maneuvers and C for control. So you want to get to the point where you can have whole big topics reduced down on a palm card, and when you go in you just remember that. You go, right, aerodynamics was made up of M for maneuvers, C for controls, F for forces, L for lift, D for drag. Now I just did that visually. I didn't do that off the screen or anywhere else. I just did that from seeing that little summary of the mind maps. So that's how you use mind maps. Now let's go on to the next one, which is summaries. Okay, summaries, basically, let's cover it really quickly. You start with 10 pages, you reduce it to 5, then you write another summary, you reduce it to 2.5, then you reduce it to 1 page, try and get it to half page, and then try and get it into a little palm card. Okay, now when you go and say you have a break for a day and you don't study, and you whip out your palm card and you get to, say, you do your aerodynamics one, and you get to D for drag, and you can't remember what comes under it, the induced and the parasitic, you can't remember that. So you go I and P. Oh, P is parasitic, but what's I can't remember. Go back to your next level summary, your 1-page summary. If there's not enough detail in there when you're reading something in there, go back to your 2-page or 2.5-page summary. If there's not enough detail, go back to your 5-page. So that's the point in reducing and scaling down. And the reason we do several rather than just go straight to a palm card is because our brain needs time to be able to reduce and shrink that content down. Okay? And the other thing is the process of shrinking it is creating repetition, which is going to help. You need to keep moving. So ask yourself questions. Now, if you're doing practice exams, you're going to quickly realize that there's a pattern to the way they ask you things, okay? They can only ask you so many ways of doing things, and they tend to keep repeating the types of ways that they ask you things. So, for example, with a graph, they nearly always ask you about the peak or the trough, or if there's a line intersecting it, they nearly always ask you about that, or they ask you about the relationship between the two things. So what you need to do is when you're reading sections of text, or when you're studying, if you're not using practice exams, then what you should be doing is going, right, what question will they ask me about this? Create your own question in your mind and then create your own answer. Now, remember back when we did visualization and saying it out loud and all those other strategies in memory? This is a strategy for understanding concepts, okay? If you can read information, turn it into a question, and create an answer for it, you will understand that topic. Let's move on. Practice exams. Without a doubt, practice exams are the #1 way to study. And they're not, now, you shouldn't be the only way to study, but they are the #1 way to study. Now, the reason is this. Practice exams teach you exactly what you can expect. So there's no shocks. They'll show you the ambiguity you can expect in questions. They'll show you the trick questions that you'll get. They'll show you what to expect in the style of questions, in the length, in the how difficult the answers are going to be. Okay, and the other thing that they do is they allow you to quickly identify what you know and what you don't, so you can focus your effort on what you don't. The problem with most of these other study methods is they don't tell you as you're studying what you know and what you don't. So we tend to waste a lot of time on our favourite topics, and we tend to skip over and avoid the ones we don't know. With practice exams, you can't do that. With practice exams, the whole point of doing them is to work out what you don't know so that we can go and study what you don't know. So what it does is it creates this massive efficiency. So now let me just talk about paper versus online exams. The problem with paper exams is this. The questions keep appearing in the same order, but you can chop them up and change the order, and that will definitely help. But the problem is the answers appear in the same order too. And so what happens is your brain remembers, if you've done this question, say 3 times, that the answer was at the top. A bit like you can remember your PIN number with your muscle memory. Okay, and your eyes and your hands, the muscle memory will remember the location of the answer rather than the content. So paper exams, the problem is they can trick you into thinking you know the content when you actually don't. So if you are going to use paper exams, make sure you chop up the questions and give them to yourself in different order, and preferably even chop up the answers if you can work out a way to do that. So that's our study techniques. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how to engage the brain while we study. Definitely don't miss tomorrow, because if you are going to study, you want to maximize the return you get on your time investment. So we need to make sure that the brain is actually engaged while we study.